Why don't we go to this clip from this 1962 movie called The Miracle Worker, which covers like the first 8 years or 7 years of Helen's life, and particularly her relationship with her teacher, Anne Sullivan, who we'll get into later, who's a necessary person to talk about in this story. None of this happens without her, and so yeah, I'm just gonna like talk us through this clip a bit, just because a lot of this movie happens without words, so those who are listening as a podcast won't get much out of the clip. So the first voice you're going to hear is Anne Sullivan, her teacher, talking to Captain Keller, Helen Keller's dad.
I don't think Helen's worst handicap is deafness or blindness. I think it's your love and pity. All of you are so sorry for her, you've kept her like a pet. Or even a dog you housebreak.
And so what you see here is Helen. This is Anne's first night in the house, and they're eating dinner. And she sees how the family lets Helen just wander around the table, bothering people, eating directly off the table. And then when she comes to put her hands on Anne's plate, Anne just grabs her and says, "Hell no. Like, I'm going to treat you." And this whole thing is all about how she's, from the beginning, Anne's like, "No, you're going to be treated like a normal child. And we're going to figure out how you're going to exist in this world like everybody else. And you're not going to be treated like a pet," as she says to Helen's parents. So even dogs get house trained. And it leads to this really tough love. And this scene is like straight out of WWF. You see, just trying to force the kid to learn how to eat with a spoon. And just this is I think it's one of the most epic scenes I've ever seen in film. This scene goes on for I'm just cutting pieces. It goes on for 10 minutes of just. They must have been exhausted filming this thing. And look at this. And in this moment, she turns around and she thinks she's won, and and she spits the food right in her face. No, it's just it's just epic. I mean, it's 1962. I'm sure this scene would be criticized as horrible child abuse if it was to come out in 2020.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then here's the quote at the end.
What happened? She ate from her own plate. She ate with a spoon. Herself. And she folded her napkin. Folded her napkin? The room's a wreck, but her napkin is folded.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's tight. Wow.
Isn't that an epic quote at the end?
That is amazing, yeah.
The room's a wreck, but her napkin is folded.
Why does that take me back to Michael Jordan? Right?
Yeah?
Had to be a bit of an asshole for a moment there, I guess. I want to hear more about the context around that, but it seems, there's a kind of, I hate the term tough love, because it seems to me like a cliche or something, but it's purely, it's not tough for toughness' sake. The point isn't to be tough. The point is to assert something, even when it's difficult. And so it is to say that that's the goal. So even when, the quote at the end, the room's a mess, but the goal was to fold the napkin. We got that done. And in order to do that, there was a bit of a brouhaha.
Right.
But that was a necessary condition for the goal. And I think that's inspiring. It brings me back to Michael Jordan. And sometimes it means that some people will, Helen didn't like her at first, I'm sure. So yeah.
And it's there's there's the difference between having pity for somebody and having expectations for that person. You know what I mean? I think we need to have expectations for each other.
Yes.
And then you try to live up to those expectations. And especially the younger you are, the more you need others to put those expectations on you. The harder it is for you to self-generate those expectations and try to live up to them,
You don't have a frame of reference. You know nothing,
One of the interesting things to point out about the name of the film is that both Anne and Helen hated people talking about anything to do with their story as miracles. Like, it's like they're on the record numerous times in the 1900s, in the 1910s, in the 1920s, talking about like rejecting this frame, like because they put in so many hours and so much work, and it's like it made me think about like Einstein, how he would always reject the title of genius when he would say, if you saw how much work it was, you would never call it genius.
Right.
And so, but anyways, Hollywood is like, yeah, we're just gonna call it the Miracle Worker, and then they simplify a whole bunch of other things about the story too. Like the opening scene is basically like a newborn Helen crying, and it's like, oh no, she's blind and deaf, and the mother freaking out, realizing she can't see or hear, but really it happened when she was 19 months, and I can't imagine. Helen was still alive, I think, when this film came out, and I can't imagine them having to explain to Helen, yeah, we changed this about the story and this about the story, when she's never seen a movie. It's like, well, you have to understand, movies have to, play a little bit with.
That's crazy.
Might have been a weird situation, but so we're gonna get now to the. Oh, sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say they always do that. So Hollywood is infamous for doing that, right? Because their whole business is telling stories, and they have formats and formulas that they think works. For them. But I think just generally, there's this tendency to simplify stuff, and I don't know why that is. Why call something a miracle? To me, I find it's an effort to, if someone does something really noteworthy and we don't want to do the work to think about the process, it's like miracle. You throw in, it's like the God principle, you throw in an inexplicable event, when in fact that's kind of insulting. It's like you see it all the time with like LeBron James, for instance, who is just a hardworking man ever since a young boy, but he gets reduced to a phenom, a physical phenom, which he is as well, But
it's important to note for those of us who also worked really hard and didn't make it to that level. It's like, well, if we were 6'9", born with that frame, and it's like we would have had certain advantages. It's good to know about the phenomenal aspects of his physicality, but to reduce him to that is a terrible tragedy, I think. And an injustice to him and all the work he put in.